Hello and welcome to my channel Renew, Reuse, Restore. In just a few moments, I'm going to show you how I restored an ugly dresser into a beautiful buffet. And just as material things can be made new again, God can help you through whatever ugliness you may be going through. It could be in a relationship, a marriage, a job, an inward anger, or a struggle that you may have. I would encourage you to seek God for help and read Matthew 7. He will help you if you ask Him, trust Him to restore. I got this solid pine buffet on Facebook Marketplace. You can see I have already filled the holes with wood filler. This piece of furniture really needs a lot of work. The drawers and cupboard doors had some really deep gouges, but this piece has so much potential. The previous owner painted with aerosol white spray 2 of the drawers, so there was overspray and dripping on the sides of the drawers. I had already used citrus strip on the painted drawer fronts previously, so now it's time to sand. I'm using 120 grit on the sides here. Here is another drawer bottom that has that caked on white paint that I'm going to sand off. On the sides of the buffet, I'm using 120 grit sandpaper to knock down the wood filler and to scuff the wood to prepare for painting. Remember to always sand with the grain of the wood. Then hand sand any areas that the sander could not get. Again, because the cupboard doors are put together in pieces, the sides have vertical grain and the top and bottom have horizontal grain. So that's the direction you need to sand. Now it's time to hand sand where the power sander couldn't reach. Just enough to scuff the wood and get it in between all the ridges so your paint will adhere to the wood. After doing the first round of sanding, I realized the deep gouges around the bottom trim needed some more wood filler. Sometimes wood filler shrinks after drying, and so you just need to add a little bit more. The top is going to be natural wood and not painted, so here I'm using 100 grit sandpaper to take off this layer. I also have already used citrus strip to remove off the varnish, followed by a mineral spirit wash. You don't have to use paint stripper first, but if you don't, you're going to use more sandpaper to get down to the raw wood finish that you would like. After everything was sanded, I vacuumed the furniture. Now it's ready to clean. I'm using warm soapy water and a rag to wipe down any remaining dust before I prepare to paint this piece. This is the second time I've vacuumed and cleaned the furniture. I always clean and vacuum when I receive the furniture pieces and before I begin to sand. I have double taped around all the drawers to prevent overspray from my paint sprayer, and then I pushed in the drawers to meet with the tape. This is after doing one coat with my paint sprayer. I used a satin latex paint. I didn't prime because I was using a darker color of paint on this piece. If you are using a lighter color of paint, I would highly suggest using primer. That way you'll use less coats of paint. This is a good example of why you need to do more than one coat of paint. You can see on the drawer from the different tones where the paint took to the wood. Here I'm touching up the sides, top, and bottom of the drawers with a small foam brush. The paint sprayer got most of the areas, but some didn't have much coverage, so I'm touching those areas up. Here I'm touching up the areas inside the dresser. Now it's time to sand with 400 grit sandpaper any areas that had paint runs from the sprayer. I will go over the entire piece of furniture with the 400 grit sandpaper before spraying on the second coat of paint. Remember to always sand with the grain. After I sanded, I wiped down the dust with a tack cloth. Now it's time for another coat of paint. I'm using my Wagner Flexio 3500 sprayer in my large Wagner spray shelter. I prefer using a paint sprayer because you can achieve smooth finish results. I also prefer using latex paints instead of chalk paint because latex paint comes in hundreds of colors. So I wanted to talk about a technique with polying over top of the paint. And so instead of using a brush, like you normally would, a foam brush, you can actually use a foam roller and drag it. And I'm going to show you that here. So it goes very quickly this way, and you do not have brush marks. And if you've ever used this foam roller with poly, you know that a lot of bubbles show up, just like that right there. So you just drag it. For the smaller sections, you can always take your foam brush and go back over and get the bubbles out and get the little nooks and crannies that the foam roller could not get. You can put polyacrylic in the sprayer, but for this piece I have decided to use the foam roller dragging technique. I apply it by dipping the roller in the polyacrylic, washing it on the piece, and then dragging it smooth. I'd like to show you one trick that I've used for painting hardware. And that is just to reuse an egg carton instead of styrofoam. Sometimes I don't have that lying around, so I poked some holes in an egg carton, and I'm gonna start to paint, and then I'll just stick them back in there to dry. And I have sanded these down with 100 grit sandpaper after I washed them and dried them. And then after I sanded them, I washed them again and let them dry. So they're ready to have the paint to adhere to them. So this is the first coat, and then I will reapply another coat after these are all finished and dried. The next step is to apply a bleach wash. I used a cheap synthetic brush on a hot sunny day and applied a coat of bleach. I let it dry in the sun. You can reapply the bleach till you achieve the color of wood that you like. After the bleach dries, wipe down with vinegar to neutralize the bleach. After the vinegar washes dry, follow up with polyacrylic. I used 4 coats of polyacrylic and sanded in between each coat. And here is the final piece after it is finished. Thank you for watching, and always remember to like and subscribe.